All right, now number one, double distribution here. We're multiplying, so we start with R. We go to the 4R first, R times 4R, 4R squared. Then plus 8R. Now we'll do the minus 1. 1 times 4, so that'll be minus 4R. And then 1 times 8 is 8. Negative times positive makes that negative. Now we'll just combine the middle two terms. 8 minus 4 is 4. Number 2, same idea. We got 3 times 7, 21. But we also have that x times x there, so that's x squared. Then we go to the other 3 times 3, so that'll be 9x. Now we'll do the minus 3, so 3 times 7 again, minus 21x, and then minus 9. Then in the middle, 9 minus 21 will be minus 12x. So those were binomial times binomial. Then we get into number 3 is a binomial times a trinomial. It's done the same way. There's just going to be more to it. So we'll start out, we'll distribute the p. So all we do there is just p times p squared, which is p cubed. And then minus 7p squared minus 4p. Now we'll do the 1. 1 times 5 plus 5p squared minus 7p. 1 times 4 minus 4. When we go to combine like terms, they got to have the same variable, which they all do, but it's got to have the same exponent too. Now there's no other cubes, so I'll just bring that 5p cubed down. But then we have minus 7p squared and the plus 5p squared. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. And then minus 4 minus 7 is minus 11 for the p to the first. Then bring that minus 4 down. And 4, same idea again, but now it's a trinomial times a trinomial. So these are, even more work. It's the same idea. We just go through and we distribute each term at a time. All this is going to do, multiplying by n squared, will just bump that exponent up. We add exponents when we multiply, so 2 plus 2, 4. And then 2 plus 1, that'll be, well, we also got the 5 times 2. So that is 10n cubed. And then minus 4n squared. Now we'll go back. We'll do the minus 6. I'll color code it here. So minus 6n cubed minus 30n squared. Now double negative, be careful, plus 12n. The worst part about these is that they take up a lot of room here. There's a lot of keeping track of everything. We'll switch to purple here, so minus 1n squared minus 5n, double negative, plus 2. There's no other n to the 4th, so I'll just bring that down. Now the cubes, 10 minus 6 is 4. Now be careful, there's 3 squares, n squares there. So we got minus 4, minus 30, that's minus 34. But then we got minus 1 more, so minus 35. And then for the ends, 12 minus 5 is 7. And then bring that plus 2 down. So 5, same idea. 4 times 8, 32. A, we add those 2's, we get 4. And then 4 times 7, 28. A to the first, don't forget that's a 1 there, so 2 plus 1, 3. And then that just changes it to negative. Now we'll do the minus 2. So minus 16. I hate this board. Minus 16. A, don't forget there's a 1 there, so that'll be cube. Minus 14a squared. Double negative, be careful, plus 2a. Now we'll do the 7, 56. A squared, 49a, and minus 7. So we got 32a to the fourth, can't do anything. No other a to the fourth. For my cubes, I only have 2. 28 minus 16 is 12, positive 12. Now for the squares, we got minus 4, then minus 14, so that's, we're down 18 there, minus 18. Plus that 56 will bring you to 38. And I mean, you don't have to try to do that in your head. If you want, you can just use a calculator. And then 2 plus 49. Bring that 7. Okay. Hopefully those aren't too bad. Probably after doing a lot of them, you kind of start to remember doing it in algebra. Just be careful. There's no multiple choice on the quiz, so you get partial credit even if you make a little mistake here and there. Now 6. We want 2 numbers that multiply to the n number and add up, combine in whatever way to the middle. Now, when I say combine, like if you multiply to a negative, you got to have a positive and a negative. So when I say combine, it's kind of like they subtract to 7. You know, think of some factors, maybe 5 and 6 pop into your head, but whether you add or subtract, 5 plus 6 or 5 minus 6 won't give you 7. 10 times 3, though. 10 times 3 is 30. 10 minus 3 is 7. It's got to add up to a positive, so you want the bigger number, the 10, to be positive, and the 3 to be minus. Just like I said, 10 minus 3 would give you 7. Now, it's fine on these. If you switch that, as long as the 10 stays with the plus and the 3 stays with the minus. Those 2 answers right there are the same thing. Just like 10 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 10. 7, everything's positive, so this one's easier, hopefully. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 plus 5 is 13, and that can go in either order as well. Now on 8, 10 times 2 is 20, and they're opposites. 10 minus 2 would be positive 8. And that's trinomial factor. Now, factoring by dots. Dots stands for the difference of two squares. A perfect square is like 1 times 1 is 1. So 1 is a perfect square. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 is a perfect square. 3 times 3, 9. 9 is a perfect square. Basically, you just square your counting numbers. If you're making a list, and 11 squared is 121, 12 squared 144, and so on. These numbers, these are the perfect squares. So in order for dots to work, you got to have one of those numbers, or one of the bigger ones that we didn't get to on that list. So, yep, 16 is a perfect square. Now for the variable, b squared is b times b. So b squared is a perfect square. I mean, it literally says square there, so that's definitely a perfect square. The square root is what you multiply by itself to get b squared. Like I just said, that's b. b times b is b squared, so b is the square root. That goes first. 1 always gets a plus for dots. 1 always gets a minus in either order. And then the squared 16 is 4. So that goes second. Now on 10, even with a number out front, that 9 is still a perfect square. So we got the whole square root of that, 3 and n. That goes first in both. 1 plus, 1 minus. And then again, 16 squared is 4. After you kind of get this, everyone finds this easy. The problem later is just remembering. 11, same idea. Just don't forget, sometimes people think of 1 and they get confused for square roots because 1 is its own square and square root. 1 times 1 is 1. So, again, 5n goes first. And like I said, you can put the minus first. It doesn't matter. As long as you got one of each. Square root of 1 is 1. There we go. Now, 12, this is different than just factoring because this says equals to begin with. So this is solving an equation. When you solve an equation, you have to tell me what the variable equals. And the way this works, you factor it. 3 times negative 2 is 6. 3 minus 2 is 1. So those are the factors. Now look. I hate this board. What I was trying to draw there was a dot for multiplying. We have those two factors multiplying to give me 0. The only way you can multiply two things and get 0 is if one of them was 0. So think about it. If that one was 0, that right there would have to be negative 3. Because negative 3 plus 3 would be 0. And then it doesn't matter what's in the other parentheses. 0 times that would be 0. Or you could also get a 0 if that one right there was 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. Then 0 times whatever that other factor would be 0. That's why we changed the signs on those. So just for factoring, you stop at the double parentheses because those are factors. When it actually says solve, You got to tell me what the A equals, or P or Q or whatever the variable is. So 13, we factor. 8 times 2, 16. 8 plus 2 is 10. You got to tell me what it equals. Don't forget to switch the signs. And there we go. 14. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 plus 8 is 14. They're both minuses. Don't forget to change the signs. Same on 15. They're both minuses in your factors. Again, those are the factors right there. 4 and 5. 4 times 5, 20. 4 plus 5, 9. They're both minus. Those binomials, those parentheses, those are the factors. Switch the signs for the solutions. Again, solution is when you tell me what the variable is equal to. All right. Now, the next thing was undefined values. A fraction means to divide top by bottom. And you cannot divide by 0. If you type in like 7 divided by 0 on your calculator, it gives you an error. You cannot divide by 0. So all you do for these, when it says undefined, if that's all it says for you to do, ignore the top. You could have 100 trillion x to the millionth power, who cares? Forget about it. Just take the bottom, set it equal to 0, then think about how you solve it. There's no r squared there. This is like a 5th grade equation, just puts the opposite of plus 2, minus 2. R equals negative 2. 17, forget about the top. Set the bottom, set the denominator equal to 0, then figure out how to solve it. Hey, this one's another easy one. There's no square on the x. This is just a regular old, I'm going to add 80. And then divide by 8. 10. $18 and 19, again, set the bottom equal to 0. But this time, you got to look at that and say, hey, that's got the variable squared. So this isn't where I'm going to minus 40, then try to divide. That won't work. Like we just did on the last page to solve an x squared equation or n squared or whatever, factor. And I think you even had to do this one earlier, 8 and 5. Then just don't forget, it asks for the value that makes that undefined, so you got to tell me what it equals. Change the sign. Change the sign. $19 n plus 5 n minus 3. Those are the factors. Don't forget to change the signs. I know I said that a bazillion times, but there we go. So that's what you do when it says undefined value. Now just be careful. Some people on that quiz reversed everything. On the top, where it says undefined value, they did that on the bottom. And what you're supposed to do, what we're going to do next, they did on the top. Undefined values is when you set the bottom equal to 0. This just says simplify. So we don't set the bottom equal to 0. This is like reducing the fraction down. But we got a problem. When you reduce a fraction down, you're basically using division and multiplication. A fraction means divide. So like if you're reducing, say 4/10 down, what you're kind of doing, 4 is 2 times 2, 10 is 2 times 5. You just cancel those out. That's why it reduces down to 2/5. Because you can divide by 2, and it cancels those 2's out. When you reduce a fraction down, you're using the fact that multiply and divide cancel each other out. So when you got polynomials like on 20, you can't do that because you got all these pluses and minuses. Pluses and minuses don't cancel out multiplication or division. And I mean, I've been harping at this for like everything we've done almost this year. So what we're going to do, we're going to break it up into multiplication by factoring. 6 times 8 again on the top. The bottom you can't factor. There's no square, there's no perfect square, there's no GCF or any of that. So I'm just going to copy that down. Now look, factoring, like I've said a lot lately, breaks up something into multiplication. Now I can simplify because now I got multiplication and division and they cancel each other out. So I can cancel out that whole thing. X plus 6 is left over. And it's on top. So I don't have to worry about that big fraction. That fraction's gone now. 21. The top, we can't do anything with. The bottom, 2 times 9 is 18. 2 plus 9 is 11. So we use 2 and 9. Same thing. Hey, we just changed that into multiplication. So now that fraction, which means divide, does cancel out that multiply. So I can just go, cancel that out. But that r plus 9 is on the bottom. It can't magically like just jump up to the top. So when you have nothing left on top, you can't put 0 there because 0 on top of a fraction just makes everything 0. So when there's nothing else for the top left, they'll want it. Again, that's when you have nothing else left for the top. You fill a 1. 22. I think you've done this one already, so it's 10 and 3 again. Those cancel. I don't need any 1 anywhere because this a plus 10 is on the top. And now we don't need the bottom anymore. There you go. And finally, the last one here. Can't touch the top. Be careful. Might look like dots, but the X isn't squared, so you can't do anything. The bottom, hey, finally some new numbers here. 9 times 5 is 45. 9 minus 5 is 4. But that 4 is negative, so make sure your bigger number, the 9, gets the minus. And for a lot of these, the hint is, if you're having trouble figuring those factors out, look, if anything's going to cancel out, it's going to have to match one of the things you can't factor in order for you to cross it out. I mean, maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, but that's always a hint to at least check. Anyway, that x plus 5 is on the bottom. It can't just jump up to the top. So I got to have a placeholder for the top, and that's that 1 again. And there we go.